Alright, so hi guys. I am going to film my uh, labor and delivery story. Yeah. Hopefully I can tell you guys everything from beginning to end. I've been procrastinating doing this for a while. Um, so I'm going to post as many pictures and as videos as I can that I have. Unfortunately, due to COVID, there was only so much that I could, you know, film because of COVID. So, like the regular photos and video restrictions, it was a little bit more than what it usually is because of the COVID situation and sanitation and things like that. So, we got as many pictures and as many videos as we could. What we did not account for was my husband actually having to hold my legs the entire time I was pushing, so he couldn't really record that process. So that was funny. So yeah, I'll start at the beginning. Grace. So starting from the beginning, I was taken to the hospital on April 13th. Due to me having gestational diabetes, which was another complication. Due to me having gestational diabetes, I was taken in on April 13th for Cervidil. So Cervidil is something that helps soften your cervix. And it gets you ready to dilate even more. When I went in, I was 38 weeks and 3 days, and I had the Cervidil inserted probably like around 6 p.m. Around 10, I started going into like non-active labor. I was having the contractions. I was dilating some, but my cervix was still thick. At 3:45 that morning, my water broke. Okay, my water broke. And when my water broke, the contractions started to get like super severe. So my plan was, of course, your birthing plan goes out of the window um, once you're actually there. And then with COVID, well, I won't say out of the window, but it doesn't go as planned. And then with COVID and everything happening, like I really didn't have a lot of expectations or expectations regarding my birthing process because I kind of didn't know, how things were gonna go. So when my water broke at 3:45, the contractions started to get really intense. So I had planned to go all natural and do my best not to get an epidural. But because of me actually having to get drugs anyway to induce me, um, I got an epidural. The contractions were very intense. 3:45, my water broke. I stayed about 4 o'clock. Like it started to get real. Like it started to get real. My husband, I think I told him to shut up like 3 or 4 times while he was trying to tell me, like it's okay, breathe, breathe through it. It started to get very, very intense. I didn't get an epidural until probably about 6 o'clock. So I was in a lot of pain. When they gave my epidural around 6:15, because it takes like 10 minutes for it to start to work. And for them to insert it, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. So I said about 10:15, 6:20, like it was starting to work. The epidural was starting to work, and I started to sleep through the contractions. I was probably 10, no, I'm not gonna say I was 10 centimeters because it was not. I started to get dilated. I started to dilate more quickly and about 12:30, 1 o'clock. I was probably like at 7 centimeters, 8 centimeters, to where I was really supposed to like take like maybe another hour or two. Instead, I didn't get to my 10 centimeters until like 4 o'clock. So as I'm pushing, so first of all, let me back up. The entire time from us walking into the hospital until me pushing, our mask stayed on. Every time a healthcare provider walked into the room, we had a mask on. Every time a cleaning person walked into the room, we had to put our mask on. Those masks stayed on at all times. So we were not allowed to take those masks off when we were in the presence of another individual. Now, when it was just me and my husband in the room by ourselves, we could take the mask off, of course, but anytime we had contact with anybody else, we had the mask on. So fast forward back to me pushing. So I was pushing for 2 hours. I've never had a child before. This is my first child that I birthed, and it was pretty intense as far as pushing with a mask on, because I didn't, like I said, I've never had a baby before, so I didn't know how you were supposed to push. So my nurse had me hold my breath for 10 seconds and repeat that 3 times in a row while pushing. So I was holding my breath for 30 seconds at a time. So I would push, hold my breath for 10 seconds while I'm pushing, take a breath, push, take a breath, push. And like I said, all 3 times holding my breath for 10 seconds. I had to get oxygen probably 2 or 3 times while I was pushing, just to make sure I had an adequate amount of air, because of the pushing with the mask on. So that part was like pretty intense. Our check-in with the doctors. So at check-in, of course, we were screened. My hospital has it to where when you're screened and you come in, they ask you, do you have any of the symptoms? They tell you to put on hand sanitizer. They ask you if you have an appointment. Luckily for us, with our hospital, thank God, we were able to come in and labor delivery. You are able to have at least one individual with you. With my original birth plan, I wanted my mother in the room, my younger sister, and I also wanted a doula. I wanted a doula in the room because I wanted to have a natural birth, but because of COVID and situations that were going on, I was not able to do that. Our last 4 or 5 appointments before giving birth, my husband was not allowed to come. So that was kind of a big thing because he had made it a point to make sure he was at every ultrasound appointment. Okay, Mama? You go, baby. And then what made it even more stressful was the fact that at 34 weeks, we were told that her head was in the first percentile. And when your head is in the first percentile, I believe it's called cephali. I might not be pronouncing that correctly. But that is when your head is smaller than the average child your age, and it's so small to the point where your brain is not going to develop properly. So we were told at 34 weeks that she was in the first percentile. We came back at 36 weeks, she still was. And my doctor at that point had told me, like, this is probably your last week pregnant. So that's a testimony in itself, because when she was born, her head was in the second percentile. And they had done all type of blood tests and all types of things before we gave delivery. And for some reason, my doctor decided to wait an extra week, which is nothing but, glory be to God, because like I said, when she was born, her head was in the second percentile, and at her first checkup, she was in the fifth. So her little head grew quickly. So we praise God for that. But that was something that really worried us going into the ER as well, for labor and delivery. My overall thoughts on my birthing process, I would say it's definitely not what I expected. Especially when you watch television shows and movies, and like, we have this false sense of what birth is going to be like, and then you ask the individuals around you, she's pooping. And when you ask the individuals around you, like, how was your birthing process? Oh, mama. Here. And when you ask the individuals around you about their birthing process, it's like they magically, like, float over the pain and the anxiety and lots of things like that. I would say that the most stressful thing for us was after she got here, she had jaundice, and she had to stay in the hospital 2 extra days because of the jaundice, and a newborn baby under UV lights with no clothes on. She was cold, and then her sugar was low, so we had to wake up every 2 hours to make sure she ate, and supplemented. My milk wasn't coming in, well, my colostrum at that time wasn't coming in the correct way. And so we went in on Monday night, and we finally were able to go home Friday afternoon. So yeah, it was pretty intense to me. Side effects after giving birth with the epidural. The saddest part regarding my birth process was she was laid on my chest immediately after I had her, but they had to take her just as fast as they put her on my chest, because I was shaking so much from the epidural that I could not hold her for at least like 2 to 3 hours. And so that was really, like, that was really heartbreaking, not being able to hold her right after I had her. So I had to wait 2 to 3 hours. I was throwing up constantly, and I was shaking really bad. So yeah, those were the most major side effects I had. After that, that's when we were dealing with the jaundice and not being able to go home the next day. Overall, I would say with COVID, luckily with our hospital, like, we didn't really have much exposure to anyone with COVID, because the actual, like, emergency room side was, like, on the other side of the hospital. So our floor was, like, kind of isolated in another building. So we really didn't come into contact with much. It was just keeping those masks on at all times, and then your anxiety levels after having the baby and actually going to the first couple of appointments. Because right now I'm almost 2 weeks postpartum, so she has another appointment coming up.
It's okay. First.